So we're going to be looking at the U.S.'s backyard in World War II, and basically what that encompasses is the good neighbor policy and the hemispheric cooperation. And all you really have to know is, like a good neighbor, FDR is there.
Nah, kidding aside, it was a lot more involved than that, but it was created by Franklin Roosevelt in 1933 to help strengthen relations with Latin American countries. But before we get into the context of World War II and really why it was created, we have to turn back the clocks and look at the Monroe Doctrine in 1823. Basically, what this doctrine did is it was the start of America's foreign policy in the Western Hemisphere, and was the start, as of many historians call it, the age of American imperialism, which really took off in the late 19th century. In the simplest form, it was the U.S. stating that the Western Hemisphere was our neighborhood, basically us marking our territory. We broke away from Britain in 1776, and Europe had the Eastern Hemisphere, but Latin America and the West was ours. Some things you can look at in this doctrine is you have interventions in Nicaragua, and Haiti, and Cuba, and Mexico, and Panama, all for self-interest, like the sugarcane we learned about in Cuba and the Panama Canal. But as this goes on for the next century, for lack of a better term, it starts to piss off these nations because the U.S. is so involved and controlling. They're now more seen as an enemy rather than a friend entering the 1930s, just as hostilities are about to rise dealing with World War II. And FDR realizes this, so he creates the good neighbor policy in 1933 to kind of flip the script and get Latin America as friends again. However, becoming a friend wasn't as nice as it made the U.S. seem, because although they hugely helped Latin America entering the World War II years, it is important to remember it was always out of personal interest for the U.S. to get something out of it. So some solid things you can look at as the U.S. was trying to be this good neighbor was we removed troops from Nicaragua and Haiti. We renegotiated a treaty with Cuba, kind of annulling the Platt Amendment from the Spanish-American War. And as Mexico was trying to nationalize its foreign oil companies, we were negotiating for fair prices. All these are examples of PEMs, political, economic, and military, but the U.S. was even trying to help socially. We were trying to bring some Latin American culture into Hollywood so the U.S. didn't seem so secluded, so people like Carmen Miranda and Latin American women were put at the forefront of many films, plays, and movies, which was all planned through the government. So essentially, the U.S. was really trying to create this open door so they could trade and build solid relationships, so threats of World War II, like fascism, couldn't penetrate the Western Hemisphere, and Latin America would stay united because this was our hood. The U.S. wanted a good backyard. You can look at it as a success because they were able to win the war and keep the Western Hemisphere united, but it really ended its apex in 1945 when the war ended and the U.S.'s focus shifted to the Cold War and stopping the spread of communism. Obviously, this policy wasn't just eradicated in 1945 as things like the Kennedy Doctrine was enacted, but this is about the end of its context to World War II. You can find more details about this in our diorama and essay found over to the side, and don't forget, like a good neighbor, FDR is there. Can I get a hot tub? Some economic help?